All right, I'm back again. This is part two of the reaction to the brother Kofi and Black to Africa video that he did. Is speaking about. Let me see if I can get the name. Black Facts and White Lies of the Story of Christ's Birth Before the European Story. Okay. So basically, let's get into it. You ready? Let's get it. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings and keep up the lessons. This is your brother Talib from the Brother Talib Show coming back at you with the second part two of this video, as I said in my introductory coming into this video. So basically, we're at a point where this guy Quasi or Ashura Quasi is lecturing the people at this, I guess it says Unity Church, and he has, I think, a few other skits or videos of this guy doing talks to the people about the version, the Egyptian-tology version or the Kemetic version in relation to Jesus and his mother, his birth, and the whole nine, and even history. This guy gets into history about creation of man through Adam and Eve, and how the Bible, or how the European version depicts the woman as the main one who brought about the original sin, and shows how the disrespect and not giving any acknowledgement of a woman having a good strong influence or good strong um, position in mankind's good and benefits. Now, Islam, alhamdulillah, never talks against the women in that aspect the same. So that's why leaving out knowing the position of Islam. I don't know. I watched most of the video, but I didn't get to watch all the video through. If you mention anything about the depiction of Islam or the versions of Islam when it comes to Isa or comes to Jesus alayhi salam. So let's go on and move on and try to get through this video as quick as I can and finish it up. All right. So let's listen in.
I don't know, but that's belief. On these temples, right here, Dendera, at the temple of Heru, let's go inside these temples, brothers and sisters, and going inside these temples, here we can see an ancient spiritual story where Asar, here we see, is born in a manger. One of the things that I make sure of is that we get accounts that's not going to be revealed to tour groups who come through here. That's what I tried to do. Reveal the information that normally would be passed by and not even mentioned.
So he's dealing with the fact of how when they do their tours and they deal with, and then even Kofi, he mentioned it before about, one guy who was doing a tour, and he actually might have been Muslim. His name was Abdullah, and he did his own tour, and he asked some questions about if he did the tour and showed the people who were especially predominantly Caucasian European persuasion, did he give them the information and the knowledge that this guy Ashura Quasi would do about the real stories of the Egyptians in relation to this subject of Jesus and the birth of Christ and the Immaculate Conception and all this, and how the Europeans actually, their forefathers depicted or took and copied a lot of this information, or what was found in the story of the Egyptian stories in relation to this, how they took it and added it into their religion, which is we know as Christianity today, or Catholicism, which is the main first way and influence of that version. Okay, because again, with Catholicism, and I spoke about this, the Europeans that were influencers, or they were, put it this way, they were the forefathers of Catholicism or Christianity, or from the version of Catholicism or the Catholic, they were pagans first until after Constantine actually accepted Christianity and they brought the Nicene Creed and they initiated their understanding and way of Christianity throughout the world, even with force, especially with force when it happened. And they were even killing of other Christian denominations or sects, killing them off if they rejected this new creed to go through globally. Okay, so they changed it, of course, with him. But they were before they were pagans, so they initiated their pagan ways and copycatted their ancient forefathers of their people, Grecian, Romans, and then and also included African, African, Egyptian, or what have you, forms of versions in that aspect of this type of um, happenings of Isa alayhi salam. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to try to skip off and go past some of what he's saying.
Now,
I think, let me see.
Here's the book. Let me read it. You have the book? That's page 18. Here's the chapel right where you are. Is that the same chapel? Yeah. Okay, you see where I have yellow there, right? Okay, so let me read it. This court and chapel, from a special unit within the great temple, they were used for the celebration of the day of the child in his cradle, a festival commemorating the birth of Horus.
Okay, so now they're talking about commemorating the birth of Horus, and they have different people who are in these ideas and these symbols, or these whatever is being symbolized and portrayed in this temple as the birth of this being that happened to be a god later. And this is what is known as the copying of what the Europeans did, and they used it and took the Afrocentric or African version and copied and pasted onto what they believe in Christianity with Jesus or Jesus, the Latin name for, and then a European version of this person. That's what they did, and then they utilized the stories of that came from Allah about him talking about uh, 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 um, the Prophet Isa. Okay, now these people try to say the Roman Empire and this and like this, or they try to say that the Roman Empire, or these people, of course, they copied, and the people, the early Christians, they copied. But the early Christians that were before this didn't have the same paganistic teachings, because they were believed in Isa as a prophet, not God, not a god. So this is a difference. And they knew that he was a prophet bringing word. So the stories of the corruption that was there was inconsistent to the clear story that was about Isa alayhi salam. Now, as far as the Immaculate Conception, it wasn't called the Immaculate Conception in Hebrew terms. It was another name for it, but it was that they spoke about the spirit, a being that was like a spirit, and this being they call him later on as the Holy Spirit. But this being was in Islam clarifies that he was Jibril, the archangel Gabriel, that carried Isa's soul and implanted into his mother. Okay, and the body and form was fashioned in her body. Allah did not have to use a human being to give a sperm and put it and implant it in her body by conception, or that part of reproduction is known as conceiving from sexual intercourse with a man. He didn't have to do that. He's able to do anything that suits him and that suits his majesty. That he's not going to be putting himself lower neither and making himself a human being, and just to get people to believe in him. So that stuff, of course, is a fallacy. And he's not, and he doesn't have partners. He doesn't have any needs from anybody. He can do these things. He created Adam, and Adam wasn't even all that miraculous. The universe is more miraculous. If we want to talk about something great and powerful, is how the universe was put together, let alone a fleshling being made out of materials from the earth. The earth is not the only heavenly body in the universe. There's plenty other heavenly bodies, planets, as we come to know, in the universe, and there's 7 heavens. This is only the first heaven. So it's more beyond what we are on. This is Islam. Islam brings this knowledge. Islamic astronomers were well known for their scientific studies and inferences and then theories that became facts because they got them from the Quran. They got them from the Prophet's teachings. Yes. So when it comes to this, with Isa, there was plenty of word that came with Allah about the coming of Isa. And then when Isa came, the people in those times, the Yahuds, the Jews, the Hebrew Israelites, they knew of his coming, some of them. And then the kings that was trying to kill him, Herod, was told by those people who were wayward Jews that did not also want to lose their prestige and their position that Herod was giving them while he was occupying their in his rule. They wanted to keep that. And so they was down with trying to help him to have him killed. So they did their, investigations and trying to find where he was. And they killed some of the firstborn and this was like Musa. This was like Moses that Pharaoh did. Ramses did to the firstborn. And you know what I'm saying? So of Israel to try to remove the coming of a nabi, of a prophet. They didn't want this prophet because their own people who were wayward warned against to their occupiers and told, yeah, he's going to go against you. He's going to bring the people against you. So they already knew the coming of Isa was coming. And you're going to try to say because it was before Christ that the Egyptians were getting this knowledge and gaining this. They got this knowledge thousands of years before the coming of Christ. Allah already knew the coming of Christ. He's all-knowing because he was planning that. And that's why the people, when they spoke about him before he came, and then there's other scriptures, and even from Musa, he speaks about a Messiah. Okay, come on. Musa lived during those times when some of those pharaohs was around. Pharaoh, Ramses the first, or I think it's Ramses the second, whichever one of them, because one is the son of the father. Okay, and then you have other pharaohs, and you have leaders that were pharaonic in the pharaonic rule. In the rule of the pharaohs, they had the generals, they had high officials that like Yusuf or Joseph had to come upon, and his brothers, and his father Isaac, Ishaq, Isaac, who the 12 tribes descended from of Israel, Bani Israel. Okay, so they was around those times. Let's get the story fulfilled. Let's not just leave out pieces and puzzles because we want to fit in what we want to fit in. That has the blackness of it. And I don't have a problem with being black. I don't have a problem being African. That's what I am. I was born this way. It's done. But I have a problem when you want to leave out the other puzzle and leave out the other pieces because you want to make it more to accept it and say, yeah, and give you that pride that you need to have because you're missing it because it was stripped away from you when Allah allowed them to take that away from you. Why was our people put into slavery? Why was this stuff stripped away from us? We got to answer that question and get to understand why. And what we know from Islam and the Quran and the Sunnah is disobedience leads to debasement, leads to losing and falling into where you lose that greatness that you have and all that pride you want to have and think you're the kings and the kingdoms and the pharaohs and the this and the that, and you have gold and you doing your own people wrong. Then later on, choom, Allah takes the rug from up under you and puts you back under the rug where the people start walking on top of you. Yeah, that's how different nations have been conquered and overthrown, and all of that. That's how it's happened. As long as the people stay in their way, and if Allah sends a messenger to them and they reject that messenger, boom, Allah's going to allow that to come down on them. And it may not be just that; it may be natural destruction. Oh yes. Okay, so let's go on. Let's move on.
Okay, we call it Murray, that they corrupted it into Mary. That's literally a copy off of your tombs thousands of years ago.
Again, so now what they're just doing is just trying to show that what they feel is the proof and the depictions and the hieroglyphics and the pictures of the symbols of what had happened and the different happenings in relation to Jesus and then birth of Christ and how it was copied from the African Egyptian stories. Okay, and that's what they're trying to do here. And in Islam, the puzzle is not quite put in there. Okay, so to put the puzzle back, to try to put the puzzle in there, is to say, okay, so the Egyptians were depicting these people as such. How do we know they didn't take it from when Isa's prophets came into effect and spoke these stories? Pharaoh himself, he was inspired by Musa to do certain things and to incorporate certain things that he had to change in order for people to be okay. Well, the Yahuds now they're believing in what Musa was talking about, what Moses is talking about. So now I'm going to have to do things to make them feel comfortable to still stay here with me, and then talk to them. And they did back and forth debates. They didn't quite. Pharaoh didn't want to quite just go out and just say, okay, I'm going to kill this guy, because they were raised up together. They grew up in the same household as almost like brothers. Okay, because Musa alayhi salam was adopted. And there's proof about that on Nile when he was found, and his mother, or the adopted mother, took on him and raised him up with Pharaoh, with Ramses. But his actual mother that was that he was from, she was a Hebrew slave or Hebrew servant, if you want to say back then, So pretty much that's left out. That's left out. And any of the stories that speak about when Isa, when he was doing his prophethood actions, you don't hear them from the Afrocentric point, because that life was not consistent in Egypt. So of course they're not going to have the full path and the clarity of his prophethood as he was moving around, or when he was actually born. They don't tell you. They tell you a different depiction of a story of how these gods, or they call them gods and they commemorate them as gods, Horus and all these other people, Set, and then you have the mothers and so forth. Can't remember their names, and that bear them, and the different symbolism and like mystical kind of, as Brother Coffee says, spiritual. It's all spiritual, how these things happen. And they use that term. Some people use that term, especially when they are more into spirituality. They want to put themselves in the position of, I'm a spiritual person, and because they don't want to put themselves in the category of being religious, because they don't want to be segmented, and they don't want to be, okay, I have to fall and follow this according to. But when you're spiritual, you can be free and do anything you want, because it's your desires that you're basing that on. You desire this, and you can think, okay, well, I've been inspired to do this by who, and this spirit came to me, or this, but you're not really establishing yourself on some clarity of what it is. Not this some just anything just happened out of like, just things that are like just out of nowhere. But stuff is in order. Like Allah has created things and be in order, and His prophets did things in order because they followed His orders, and stuff got uh, corrupted as time, because once they was either what they died when they died off, then the people fell off, or if they was even killed, like Yahya, John the Baptist. Some prophets were killed, most of were not. They died old age because Allah protected them. But it was in different times. When it comes to Noah lived before these Egyptian pharaohs. Okay, he lived before them, before Egypt became to be known as a civilization. Okay, Adam, on the other hand, is the beginning of human beings, and the story that is with the Bible from the Catholicist point of view and concept is, of course, is inconsistent, and it's contradictive, and it has a lot of holes in it, and corruption clearly show where it was what that was there that got it to where it is today. Okay, he went away from the beginning when Isa was around and his teachings, and was monotheism, and then now we got polytheism with little bits and pieces of monotheism still left of what it was left of it, because they changed it up so badly. And I understand, and I agree with even the Kemetics and these people who are into Kemet and stuff. But now you're going to bring the African version, or how you want to be, but it's still dealing with polytheism, gods and goddesses. There's only one. La ilaha illallah. There's no deity worthy of worship except Allah, which means the one God in Arabic. The one monotheistic God in Arabic. Okay? And that's the basis of what Islam is. We submit to that being, not to the beings, or the feminine beings, or even the masculine beings. The Creator does not have any masculinity, no femininity. He's beyond that. That's for us. But we refer to him in the masculine because when we say he or his or the father, is because of his position is of the norm of what was first for us to relate with these human minds, because Adam was the first. A human being that was first on this earth is clear. There's too much proof to that. You can bring these hieroglyphics, we can go into stones and this and that, but there's still inconsistencies there in the stone itself. Like I said, robbers and stealers and people who were entering these places, who's to say they changed or wrote this and did this? Because they showed that one time with one of the ancient people, how someone came in later after they thought that this was the original authentic engravings, and someone came in and added to it the engravings. But because it was so far behind in a 1,000-year time period, they still considered it ancient. So they put it in there with it, even though it changed up things. Okay? So we can't just base everything on that. Sorry. Actually, I'm not apologizing. I'm just saying in a way, well, no, we can't. So anyway, let's continue on and see what's
so you see the cow was always over the Haru king, as you see the cow over the white Jesus.
See, and they have their symbolism with the cow and all that. They get into that. I don't really want to get into that.
All right, family. Let me go ahead and get back over
here.
Stop sharing. And so that right there was just a taste that our brother Ezra Kwesi has beautiful tours. I mean, twice a year. Check out his channel. I believe me, I'm not trying to push or get you to go on any tours, but if you want truth from the side of where a credible study, a man who has done great lengths of study under master teachers, and have who has come from under master teachers of the.
And did those master teachers say the same thing? Yes, they said the same thing. That's what's clear. Was there any people who was in disagreement with some of those findings and the researches that they perpetuate and continue to talk about? Because like most of the Kemetic community, they say the same things. A lot of those names are famous. Mayat, Mayat, that religion and that's there with that goes along with their Kemetic ways and is part of their religion and spirituality. Mayat is their way, and they are all the same and in line with the same. And it's understood. I'm not trying to put it down or anything as far as it being organized in that manner, how everybody gathered up the same knowledge and is on the same page. But where is the points of disagreements? Where is the points of, oh no, there's no altogether consistency with what we find. That's what is the problem here. And with our people, where we got, okay, you want to learn knowledge, but you got to know the other side. You got to think about what is missing. Isn't there something missing? Because this sounds all too great. It sounds all that it was clearly without any imperfections. But that's again. Doesn't anyone try to talk in a sense of your inert nature to know that there's a creator, but that why would you feel that that these people promoted or put out that there was gods and goddesses? What is this? What is this? Where's these feelings come from that you feel that this is what it is and this is what it was, that it was, and that it was beneficial and it was needed? Because if it was beneficial, then it would be consistent today. But it's not. As far as the percentage of the people who practice this way and believe in this like this, predominantly African American. And you got British, you got other African diasporas, right? And the Africans that are there. But the majority of the Africans from the continent don't even fathom it because they got so much tribal and traditional ways with their tribalism that has other forms of spirituality besides Egyptian spirituality. And that's just Egypt. That's just Kemet, as they say, or know it as. Or then you have Nubia. All these different names, but we know what we're talking about. So why, if it was so beneficial, that's not prevalent today amongst the people's minds and hearts? And why is Islam the fastest growing belief in the world, let alone in Africa? Because the proof is in the platter. Because we originated on this earth on that, in that way, is to know that there's only one deity that is worthy of worship. So we swayed away. And who was the main person who swayed us away? The Shaitan, our enemy, our devoured enemy, who did not want us to be on point, on the path that we're supposed to be on, our purpose that we was put here for. Okay, so just on that, just to bring that up.
The truth of what our accomplishments and what the Kemet society or Egypt society, what we have had contributed to the world. Please spend a little time, a little money to go on a tour to find out the truth. Because I had to, and then cause Adam to eat it.
I had to jump.
They were kicked out of the kingdom of, or the. I don't care what the book says for me, but I can.
Now see that, as he says, he doesn't, and that's understood. That's his position. That's his opinion, and everybody can use and choose their own way and how they think about things and see things and understand aspects of things in life that they focus on. And he happens to be focused on religious aspects of our life and how the Caucasians, Europeans depicted it, and how the difference from Africans and African Egyptians, as we were speaking on, are coming from their view of this ideology. So, but it doesn't make it that, okay, well, the book is wrong, or like this. I'm not even arguing for, of course, I'm not arguing for the Bible. I'm not arguing for the Christian books or Bibles, especially the modern Christians. Not the Gospels of Isa, but not the Injil. Gospels of Isa alayhi salam, the Gospels of Jesus, because and then it wasn't Christians. They were Yahoo. They were Yahuda. They were Israel, Bani Israel. Okay, they were Hebrew that was following, and they had different sects of them, and the ones that followed Isa, they were on point. That was who they were. But they gave the name was given to them Christian, which is derived from Christos. Okay, it comes from the Latin words, and these are Latin words that come from the Romans, and they were slanders and people that gave the names to these people who followed Isa alayhi salam. That was from the Romans. That was from those people who spoke that tongue, Latin. Okay, and the Grecians as well, because Latin with Grecians and Latin with the Romans are similar. Has a difference in a sense, but it's still Latin. Okay, and later on Italian came, but Latin was the language. And you got other different sister languages or brother languages, cousin languages with English. I mean, with the European tongue of the Latin, which is one of their most ancient ones. Okay, so basically, that's not going to be a basis to say, because a person doesn't feel that they care about the book. But we got to, the proof is in the platter of what Isa alayhi salam did in Islam. But as far as the Bible, of course, we can argue with that.
Use the book and seeing that there is some credence in what it says about man. It shares about the evilness of man, the ways of man, and all that right there. But I also see some things in it that has been impregnated in it through the man's so-called intentions of wanting to control some people.
Yeah, and that's true, and we know that, and we've watched that, we've heard about that, we saw that in slavery, as we came to understand the stories that were recorded and preserved about what they did to our people or our ancestors who were enslaved in America. Okay, and the colonialization as well. Their tactics, their ways was atrociously evil upon the people and harmful to the people. And they forced them to accept a version of what was supposed to be Christianity that they wanted to bring to the people and give them, and only give them a few pieces of it, not all of it. They didn't allow them to learn to read and read the Bible itself in the language that it was in, and then it was English in America. Okay, so we understand that.
That they have also impregnated some words into it, because you got to have outside sources to know some more truths, whatever. So, in saying that, family, before I show this other video, we have been taught about the so-called makeup of man. You know, how we came from man. Adam, woman comes out of the rib of Adam, and then this whole story is told how we were brought into a world of sin because Eve,
Now, the thing about that is that, okay, you have, what is it, starts in Genesis, right? That's supposed to be part of the Old Testament. When you deal with the Hebrews and you deal with the Israelites, they're going to give you, not with the version fully which you're coming with, it's going to be a bit different because it's in the language that it was given in. When that book and Allah gave to Musa alayhi salam about what had took place when he created mankind, when he created Adam first, and then his wife that came from him, as it says in Islam. But Islam came along and backed it up. 1400 years ago, a prophet that didn't know how to read, didn't know how to write his language, but knew and understood it and how to speak it, because it was in his brain. It was implanted as he grew up. So he learned the tongue of Arabiya, of Arabic, the Arabic language, and his tribal people and his people of his family and so forth came up into an Arabic environment. Okay, so he was going to know the language. This is natural. This is where learned behavior starts with at home with children, and we know this. We know that process as they come up. So, and that's the language they speak, what is spoken in their home. So, but he did not know how to write it. So for those people who say, "Oh, Muhammad wrote the book, wrote the Quran," no, and he could not read it. So if somebody brought it to him, he's not reading it because he doesn't know how to read it. If somebody can translate it to him, oh, that's not what happened either, because he didn't speak to people who knew the Quran, because the Quran yet was not given to him yet. You understand? That's why it also says with the Quran, when people have a doubt and they think that they can produce something better from the Quran itself, then try to do so. And they failed. People did it back then, tried to do it back then, people try to do it now. And you cannot produce the ayats, the verses in the Quran, as Allah has done. And the Quran is known as Allah's word, his clear, authentic kalam, his word, from him directly to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It wasn't that he spoke to him in person. No, Allah sent that as revelations in his mind. He went out into visions, and Allah gave him the revelation in some of the dreams. Times he was on meditating, boom, came to him, and different situations. The first time it was given to him, he was in a cave, and he had to leave out of there eventually because he was so afraid, because who first brought it to him was Angel Jibril, to let him know that this is what's going to be done. You're being given prophethood, and Allah says to read Iqra. This was the first verse and first surah that was given to him. Then later on, the rest came. Okay, so to say that the Prophet, and to say that with Islam, that the word, the Quran, 1400 years ago, had to be created up or made up, and then when you take the understanding of mankind, that was created in this way. So the story as it went, that was truth to the fullest, that Adam was first, and then his wife came from him as a rib, and then later on they had children, and it went further and further beyond that. And there's narrations and other parts that come in to fill some of the gaps in that story of Adam and his wife Hoa, or as we know as Eve biblically. Okay.
So she ate the fruit and then caused Adam to eat it. They were kicked out of the kingdom of, or the
now that
over to follow, and then
now that was the biblical, and the later on implementation, like he said, or the gross sticking in and filling in their own version. Okay. That the European Christian did, or the European scribes did, or the people even before them, because it was, if you know the story of Saul, well known as Paul, who became a self-proclaimed disciple of Isa alayhi salam, didn't see him, never, he said he saw him in a vision, but he didn't see them while he was living and preaching and teaching the people that followed him, his first followers. And he eventually hooked up with one of his main first followers, Barnabas, and he hooked up with I think John. But they were especially Barnabas was the one that would spend a good more time with Isa, and stuck strong and firm on what Isa spoke, and did not change it and compromise it. But Paul used to be Saul. He was an actual tax collector, and was very, very harsh and stern against, the Yahuds, or the Jews at that time, the Hebrew Israelites, that especially that followed, that was known, that was following Jesus. So he helped in persecution, along with the Romans and those other Jews who were in the position that did not like these people who followed Jesus and was against them, persecuted them with being a harsh tax collector. So later on, he left that and he went on his own, and just a few bits of pieces of story about him. But he became ascetic, and meaning a person who left off from that life of living lavish and this and money and being a tax collector, and gave that up to become a disciple of Isa. self-proclaimed. So they changed the story from that time, especially about that the story of the original sin that started. They saying it started with the woman, started with Eve, but in Islam, it didn't even start with neither one. There's no time or position of who was first before the other. They both in Islam went to the tree of, and it's called the tree of knowledge Islamically. And this tree was revealed to them by the shaitan, the devil, that they would be given knowledge to be closer to Allah, to be closer to God, where they would be almost like godly. It would raise them up, right? And they wanted to be close to God because that's what they believed in. They were servants of God. They were the first servants on the earth of God. Okay? Worshippers. They believed in him alone and worshipped him alone. They were monotheists too then. They didn't worship other gods because they didn't even know about that. So later on that happened through other people and Shaitan tricking them. But that's what I'm talking about here. Our people were being tricked. Not saying the brothers doing that, but the people who teaching this stuff and they get to know, they've taken the trickery from the people who tricked them when Egyptology and all that stuff before was even known as Egyptology and the study of it and the history of it, that it was the practice of those people, paganism and polytheism, going astray from, as even Noah's people did, they went astray to get them to the point where when they was once monotheists and they left that monotheism and started practicing idol worship. And that's what this is. It's just African idol worship. So we make it black now, you know. Anyway.
Religion so they can try to control people and their behaviors and do it all right there. Now today what we know, because I was a preacher for 20 years, I guess, or so, I was that one behind the pulpit regurgitating old information that was learned by those before me, and I was doing the same.
But not Islam.
Take a story.
He was a preacher of Christians that were forced upon African Americans per se, more or less himself, his family, and those whoever he preached to. And Allah knows best. He knows his story. But as far as when we know African American preachers, the majority of the congregation are African American like them. So, but if not, then he was, of course, a puppet for Europeans if he was preaching to them. Because really, this religion, when from the get-go, wasn't even supposed to be given to us. Because at one point, the white men they had disagreement on whether we was to be given religion or allowed to be able to be a Christian. Because we were at one point in time beasts of burden. We weren't even human. This was stripped away from us. Okay, they took away whatever religion we had before we got here to America. Okay, and when the people went into Africa, the colonializers on that end, they came in there like they were bringing the savior. They were saving them from savagery. This is what they saw them as. You know, a bunch of people on trees and you know, gorilla people, ape people. This is the mentality they had when they came there. Wild people, you know, uncivilized. So we know these stories. We know this. So basically, this is who taught you. This is who you was preaching their doctrines and their knowledge. So of course you was preaching the wrong thing. So eventually you came to what you knowing, but did you learn Islam? I don't know. That's something for him to answer that question.
And then religion so they can try to control people and their behaviors and do it all right there. Now today what we know.
And he says religion. So he's really talking about Christianity, not Islam. And I know more or less because most of what is in this video, that's what he speaks more about the Christian version and understanding. Because if he would bring in Islam, it's going to be different. It's going to be different about Jesus. We don't believe in Jesus for one. Number one is the most important part of our belief is to believe in one deity and worthy of worship, only Allah. And that lam yalid wa lam yulad. He begets not, nor was he begotten. And there's none, wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. And there's none that is comparable to him. So that those two verses from Surah Ikhlas, the surah which means purity, okay? purity of monotheism. That's a monotheistic Tawhid surah chapter based on pure monotheism. Okay, so we know from that surah that these people who believe in Jesus as the Son of God is that, okay, God begot a son. No. Or that God was begotten from someone else, from another God above him. This is how it is with Kemetic knowledge. That this is the type of stuff that's going, but it's just Afrocentric. That's all. So every race has their own polytheism and paganism. You can put your race on it. Doesn't matter to Allah. Because that's why he sent Allah's messenger, Prophet Muhammad, as the last messenger to mankind. Not just national. And it's proof that. It's proof. We have brotherhood of the Islamic Brotherhood and Muslims, different nationalities throughout the world. And we congregate in the same places. It's not only just this masjid is an African masjid, that masjid is an Asian masjid. Majority of masjids throughout the world congregated from different nationalities. And we pray the same way, and we pray to the same deity. Now, there's some differences in the following of the Prophet and keeping with following him authentically, which is the Sunnah. And then you got some people who mess up and lose touch of implementing the Quran, the practices of the guidance of our life, the Quran, because Islam is considered a way of life. It's not considered just a religion. A religion is the categorized position that man puts on Islam because they have to consider it a religion like other beliefs that are like ours. So, but it's a way of life. It's a doing more than even the fact of that you say off your tongue that you believe. Yet your implementation of your belief has to go along with that. And it has to go along with what Allah says in his Quran and what his prophet brought along those guidelines and did not deviate from what Allah gave him. He followed it to the truth, to the ultimate truth that had no falsehood at all and no corruption. So let me finish up.
Because I was a preacher for
Okay, we're gonna go a little bit off him. I think there's an ad or something. Okay, let's see what happens. It's gotta go. Can it go ahead? Sorry.
Let's go.
That'll be over in a minute.
Still wearing enough layers.
Yeah, they gotta have ads.
It's time for a new
day. Oh boy, I'm trying to speed it up, but okay, let's skip that. All right, so he was having problems with his video, and he spoke about that, and he's saying that the people, as a lot of us do, even myself, that the people who don't want to hear the truth, and there's truth that's being brought, but the part that it goes into when the story that is true is that they took it from the Egyptian stories. Then that's where, of course, as Muslims we differ. We definitely differ. And if you bring Islam and you try to talk about Islam and say that also as a religion and put us together with the other religions, no, we are not. Islam is not, because Islam is a pure monotheistic religion. And this is why we don't acknowledge anything that has to do with polytheism, whether it's our people or African American or what have you. As an African American Muslim, I still do not acknowledge it, and I reject it because I reject shirk. I reject polytheism. I reject paganism. This is not what Allah is pleased with. I'm here. I've been placed here to please Allah. That's my purpose. That's every human being's purpose, but not every human being believes this. So through desires, people go into whatever they choose to believe and would rather, especially in these days, believe what they want to believe and have happiness in that if they feel that it's true happiness until they find out other than. And even himself, being a Christian pastor and being through the path of his growth into where he feels he's at now with Afrocentric understanding about the stories of what is
if y'all are with me, please,
portrayed
let
or
me know that y'all
shown in
It is
relation to the
amazing
stories that
when you
of
start talking
Egyptian
about that. My
history.
internet now all of a sudden gets shut down. I'm gonna tell y'all, there is a thing.
Okay.
Can you believe that? That they would want to say that because of the soot
I had to skip.
and time caused the skin to turn black. And yet the
See,
story of
now that's again, this is where like I said, we want to take our blackness of our skin color and our tone, our melanin or whatever we made up of, and the gifted things that I said earlier that Allah gave us as He's given to other humans. Other humans have different gifts of nationalities, you know, in different ways and how they can do things in life and what they're capable of doing. So Allah gifted us with these things that helped us to be able to live properly in our environment, like the melanin in our body, or the active maneuvers that we can do with our body, and being healthy and eating foods and being able to raise up foods from the earth that we know that are good for our body. You know, more ancient in times, as unlike today, which everything is processed. A lot of things are processed because we raised up in a society that's what they did. Mixed stuff and made up concocted foods and stuff like that. That's like I used to be a Rasta, and they had a song called Botanical Roots, and then one of the verses was, "Don't eat mechanical food," mechanical food, processed food. But anyway, we had these things, and we want to place all of that, our blackness and all of that, as to put it on history of, to put our history back, to put it back into the puzzle of history, or the story, the true story. But it's fine if you're going to put it back into the true story, but put it back into what Allah was in position of, how He felt about the acts of our paganism and polytheism as Africans. Let's get that real. Was this any good? Are we sure that He was happy and pleased with it? And then if you don't even believe in Him as being the only God, and now you're believing in this, how can you go from believing in what you believed in when you was brought up and raised to believing in this? Oh, only because you got tired of the fact of the lies and the corruption and the biasness and the racism that was behind that. So okay, now you want to find the truth. So you know that those things that they did, and they incorporated this Trinity thing, and incorporated these other things that you feel stole from them. Then why are you taking that and going back to the origin of that? That means there was something wrong with that. They raised up something like a person goes and finds a cigarette on the ground, and he was a smoker, and he's still smoking, doing something that's bad to him, but he sees a cigarette and he picks it up and he starts smoking it because he's especially if he doesn't have any more. But it's not good for him. Plus, it's on the ground. Plus, it's other people used already. You know what I'm saying? So the stuff that is not good for us, we take it from the people who used it already and switched it and just made it in a version they accepted. And now we want to go back to it. So, you know, we got to get it right. And may Allah guide us. I'm in 53 minutes into it, this video. I don't even want to do a third video. But the point is, I think you get my point. And you can go and look at his video if you want. That's up to you. And I'll post it in the description. And of course, you'll see my email, this and like that, to get in contact with me. Even the brother, if he sees himself coffee. And when I call him brother, he's not of my faith, but he's a brother from the human race, and that's how I've mentioned that. I already mentioned about that. A brother, an African American, like that. It's just a saying. It's just a symbolic saying of way of how to refer to a person, another human being, in a brotherly way, in a loving way, and you care about them. And I want good for him as well as all of my people of African descent, and any human being, to know the truth. So I'm with him on that. But continue on, brother. You got to continue. I got to continue. Peace and blessings, and keep up the lessons. So I thank y'all for listening. Remember to subscribe if those of you who haven't subscribed to me yet, to get more notifications and videos and so forth to come. I'm going to be doing live soon. I'm trying to get a live out sometime this week, if not by next weekend. Inshallah. I've been very busy. I'm dealing with a lot of other things that I'm doing, and then trying to be in business and for myself and my wife. And a lot of changes are coming about. as we say, so-called this new year according to the Gregorian calendar, which we don't accept as Muslims. We only follow the lunar calendar, the calendar of the Hijra calendar of the Muslims, making the first Hijra. So we follow that, and that's what we've try to live our life upon, because Islam is a way of life. Okay, so we don't promote anything that has nothing to do with Islam unless it is permissible to do so. So outside of that, especially paganism practices like New Year's Eve, no, we don't deal with that. Or Christmas that went before it, no, we don't deal with. We don't accept their version of the teachings of Jesus being born. And then y'all have your depiction of the Egyptian way of being born in the manger. There's not no clarity on that he was born in the manger. Okay, that with Islam, that's not part of the story. He was born between Egypt, and he was born between Israel or Jerusalem and those areas where he was doing where his mother was living with her family, her Yahud or Hebrew Israelite family, before she got kind of like pushed out. She had to leave because she was afraid he was going to be harmed. And, it was revealed that way. Her own uncle, protected her until he felt that it was time for her to roll. She had to go. And in between that point in time, she gave birth near a palm tree. This is understanding of Islam, just to finish up. And when she gave this birth, and I'm going to bring you the story. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do a video based on the story of Isa alayhi salam, since we've gotten into this. And then we passed by this Christmas paganism day, where they promote mostly about a fictitious or of evil being known as Santa Claus. Or I like to say Santa Claus. But, from the history of him, the story of him from where he derived from is on some evil stuff. So those people with all that stuff, they don't even know. Blind following, just blind following. But I understand where he's coming from, but we got to go beyond that. We got to go beyond our skin. We got to go beyond our blackness. We got to go beyond, be black and proud. Say it loud, and I'm black and I'm proud. I'm not trying to mock it, but I'm trying to let you know the seriousness of it. Because we wasn't placed here just to be that. He created us as that. And he created all these other nations and these races of who they are. Ants, dogs, cats, animals, all different species. But they wasn't created to be proud over each other and thinking they're better. Thinking that they were the best chosen of everyone. And or their history or their stories of their past was the most rich, that we got to take heed and say, oh, this is what I need. No, you need clarity. You need truth about who you are. What is your purpose here? What is your purpose here? What is the real purpose? And if you got misscrewed and you kind of unsure, and you went through all these different things in life and it didn't go to it, your purpose is not to what do you call it, satisfy your desire only. That's not the main reason why we're here. To be happy. No, that's not the main reason why we're here. The first and main reason why we're here is to please the Creator. So therefore, following that, you can be really happy here. Because most of the people who pursue of happiness are jammed up and don't realize that they might pursue this, and then they find out later. And they're disappointed. But with Islam, in submission to Allah, the Creator, of your purpose of worshiping Him here and pleasing Him, that's what pleases Him, worshiping Him and putting Him in worship alone. That's what pleases Allah. That's the main thing of all His creation, not just us. But us going astray messed that up. Messed that up bad. We're messed up. And we don't even know. So now, when you get into your losses because you feel this is not making you happy, I'm not feeling this religion, I'm not feeling this belief, I'm not feeling these people, I'm not feeling being around this, I don't like that, I don't want to do this. And then you try to do something else. And then that don't make you happy. Remember the grass is greener? Yeah. Other side, you try to go and look on the other side and see, oh, that grass is green over there. My people being African and proud, it's more better for me in peace. Until you find that there's some of us that are not very peaceful. And we don't click like what you expect us to click. Because we're human first. We was created vicegerent, the human being, the Khalifa of the earth. Whatever races didn't matter because the first being didn't even have a knowledge of race. He was the first, and his wife was the second behind him. There was no such thing as race. There was no such thing as color. Matter of fact, in the early 1500s or so, color came in as far as being a main thing through the European. Other than that, it was just a people from this place, from that place, region, country, continent. That's pretty much how they represented people and spoke about this person. And they might have got into colors through what they visualized and what the eyes was able to see. They look like this, like people talk about the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam when he speaks about Africans, and he put one narration that they hold against the Muslims, and especially people who are trying to paint him as racist and say that the raisin head people or something like this in that narration. I don't want to, I'm paraphrasing only part of it because I don't want to say it wrong and incorrect of what he said, because then that could be like I'm just bringing a misconception or adding to or taking from, and I dared to do that. So what he said in paraphrasing is talking about a raisin head person or man. It was a description because raisins are dark in color, and it's not just raisins, dates. He could have said a date-looking man. He could have said a grape, the real grape, purplish, dark purplish, where you don't even see it to be purple anymore. A grape. He didn't say aswad. He didn't say black. He used the term raisin. So where's the racism there? It was the description. But that's the same thing with us. We get caught into what our eyes see, this and that, and what you can't see. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. That's the atheist. And the agnostic too, they can't pinpoint it, but the agnostics, they'll be like, okay, there's something because we got here, but I don't know what it is, so I'm just gonna be me and do what I do. And say, okay, well, we're here. Whatever created us did, and now we're here. Live my life until you die. And then don't know what's gonna come after. And that's what as Muslim is one of the main goals, is the hereafter. The Egyptians, they had reincarnation is one of their ideology, part of the ideologies of the afterlife. And they had some other symbolism stuff and whatever, mysticism stuff. Meaning it didn't have, it's from myth. It didn't have clear, factual, organized way of how things were to be, how to come, because and then that played a role in real life because those people never got reincarnated. The proof is in the platter. You can try all you want and say, oh, he acts like that person that was dead back then, or like his grandfather. It's not reincarnation. That's traits. The scientists have proven that. They've proved there's no theory no more. That's why everybody's going to check their DNA, going to find out about, because they're using science. So they've proven this stuff already. They've proven that what we, contemplate or try to relate to, like I was saying with the Egyptians, they was relating to the stars. They were relating to who can be a creator, who's this and who's that. Maybe this is a god, and maybe that's a goddess because it has a femininity to it. It has a way about it that's feminine. Or they were human beings, and then they used those human beings as representations, and they commemorated them as representations of God later. And that's basically it. We can desire this and we can desire that, but we have to be based on what's clear, what takes place. In Islam, we pray to this being and we're going to die. And Allah says this. And he says we're going to have struggles in our life. And it does happen. Allah says the woman has menses, and she did. And this is 1400 years ago, and what she needed to do. Allah spoke about that there would be people going into the air, and Allah will allow people, and we have planes. Allah said about that the wars would be against, several wars would be, the Muslims would be and win against the non-Muslims. And it happened. Allah spoke about that the Muslims would lose their power. And it happened. Because of what? Because they disobeyed and they went astray and they went into deviating from the correct way of this faith. And it happened. And then Allah says that it will return back as it was before, strange. And return back to what it was. And those people will be raised up and be given success again in the earth. And given power. The Muslims will get power again in the earth. And it's getting there. But he also said that we will be growing in numbers. As time comes closer to the day that we will leave, all human beings and everything will be taken away from this life, and the day of judgment will come upon us. Resurrected, and the day of judgment will come upon us. That he said before that time, but closer to that time, the Muslims will still be, before they get that greatness again, they will be growing in numbers, but they will be astray. And it will be like the froth, and this is one of the hadiths that is mentioned about it. The Prophet's word and statements, that they would be like the froth of the sea, meaning that frothy type of water structure that's bubbly and all that on like you see at the beach, at the end of the beach water when it hits the beach, and even in fresh water, and you have algae, you have all that, but they talking about the sea, so it's more the sea in mentioning of that narration. So. And it's a lot, and it's usually very, very condensed and it's like a good consistency of in that area of those parts of the water, those bodies of water. It's very, very full. Okay, so it's dense. So to say it like that, so meaning that it is a lot, but it has no substance. And that froth can be pushed away by waves and thrown all over the place. And we as Muslims are being pushed and thrown all over the place because we don't have that strength. And that strength is only lies in following Allah's word, submitting to him as a Muslim truly, and following his word and not compromising it, living to the fullest extent of following his prophet's guidance, which is his sunnah, Quran and his sunnah. That's it. So anyway, I went a little bit long, went into an hour. So I apologize. I hope y'all can still hang in there and listen through. This was very, very deep, and this was very, very strong subject matter that needs to be touched on even more than what I can do in the time that I spent. So I hope you listen in and get through, even if you just touch base in some of it and come back and listen to the rest later, do so. And don't forget to subscribe again if you haven't, and click the like button, and also share. I haven't mentioned that. I mentioned that in the other video before, but don't forget to share and get this out to others. And again, to my brother Coffee and Black to Africa, this is not something against you, whatever. It's just a reaction, and a positive and a more, of course, on a disagreement level, a respectful way of disagreement of what you brought and what the others brought, so we can have some clear back and forth dialogue on what is the correct and what is the true understanding of where we should be as a people, and where we should go, where we want to go, where are we trying to get to? Are we trying to be stagnated and go back to stuff that we did that never got us, past what we are in? Okay, or do we want to go back beyond that which, because with Islam, the only reason, again, is some people will say, well, what did Islam do? The only reason that Islam lost its position is because the people lost touch of what they had. That's what happened. They fell away from it. They went astray. They deviated. Okay, or they forgot to implement it. But he said that it will return and the Muslims will get that glory again. And mark my words, You shall see if we all live to that time. If not, our children will. So Islam is that solution to, or where we want to go, because that's where we're going to end up at when we enter the grave. It's going to be based on what we believed in and followed, and what is the belief that we accepted in our life. Other than that, that's all it's going to be. And that's going to be a question in your grave. Who is your Lord? Men Rabbuk. What is your religion? And who is your prophet? That's it. So, thank you very much. Jazakumullah khairan for listening. Assalamu alaikum, and peace and blessings, and keep up the lessons.